You're not taking my daughter. Marcus Thompson's voice cracked as he slammed his fist on the social worker's desk. Paper scattered, a coffee cup trembled. The woman in the gray suit didn't flinch. Mr. Thompson, the court will decide that, not you. 14 hours later, he would be kneeling in the rain, changing a tire for a stranded woman. He didn't know her name, didn't know she was a judge, didn't know she would be the one sitting behind that bench, holding his daughter's future in her hands. Fate doesn't knock, it collides. You're not taking my daughter. Marcus stood in the CPS office, his hands trembling, his chest heaving. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like insects waiting to feed. The social worker, Mrs. Diane Crawford, according to the nameplate, adjusted her glasses and looked at him like he was a stain on her otherwise clean desk. Mr. Thompson, please sit down. I've been sitting for 2 hours, answering your questions, filling out your forms, and now you tell me there's a hearing? That someone might take Zoe? The court will review the case. It's standard procedure. Standard, Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. My daughter is not a procedure. She's a 7-year-old girl who cries when I'm late coming home, who saves me the best pieces of her mac and cheese because she thinks I don't eat enough, who still believes her daddy can fix anything. Mrs. Crawford's pen stopped moving. Mr. Thompson, you know what she asked me this morning? She asked me why the lady with the clipboard came to our house. I didn't know what to tell her. How do you explain to a child that some people think her father isn't good enough? No one is saying, your report says it, right there. He pointed at the folder on her desk. Neglect. That's the word you used. Neglect. Mrs. Crawford closed the folder slowly. The report reflects concerns raised by mandatory reporters. Missed school days, extended periods without parental supervision. These are red flags that require investigation. Red flags? Marcus leaned forward. You want to know about red flags? I work 2 jobs, 16 hours a day. I leave before my daughter wakes up, and sometimes I come home after she's asleep. That's not neglect. That's survival. The court will take your circumstances into account. Will they? Will they take into account that her mother walked out when Zoe was 3? That I've been doing this alone for 4 years? That I haven't taken a sick day in 2 years because I can't afford to? Mrs. Crawford said nothing. Marcus straightened up. His voice dropped to something quieter, something broken. I'm not a perfect father. I know that. But I love my daughter more than my own life. And if you think I'm going to let some judge who's never met her, never seen her smile, never heard her laugh, if you think I'm going to let that person decide she's better off without me, you're wrong. He turned and walked toward the door. Mr. Thompson. He stopped, but didn't turn around. The hearing is tomorrow, 9 a.m., Judge Victoria Hale presiding. I suggest you get a lawyer. With what money? He walked out and didn't look back. The parking lot was empty. Gray sky. Cold wind. Marcus sat in his truck for 20 minutes, staring at nothing. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Patterson. Zoe asking, when you coming home? She made you a picture. He typed back, on my way, 30 minutes. Then he sat there for another 10 minutes, trying to remember how to breathe. His father's voice echoed in his head. A man provides, no matter what. No excuses, no complaints. You do what needs doing. Samuel Thompson had worked 40 years at the same factory, never missed a day, raised 4 kids on 1 income, died of a heart attack at 62, still wearing his work boots. Marcus was 19 when his father died. He remembered the funeral, the cheap casket, the pastor saying words that felt hollow, and his mother, standing at the grave, not crying, just staring. Your father gave everything for this family, she said that night. Everything. And what did he get? A plaque and a pension that don't even cover the mortgage. Marcus had promised himself he'd be different. He'd build something, be somebody. 20 years later, here he was, broke, alone, fighting to keep his daughter. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It just rots in a different spot. He stopped at the gas station, $11 in his wallet. Half a tank needed to get home. He did the math and put in $5. The attendant, a young kid with acne and a bored expression, watched him through the window. Marcus went inside to pay. "5 on pump 3. That it? Marcus looked at the snacks behind the counter. Zoe loved those little chocolate donuts. The ones in the white package. $2. He had $6 left after gas. He grabbed the donuts and put them on the counter. "These too." The kid rang him up. $7.53. Marcus stared at the register. $7.53. He had $6. "Hold on." He put the donuts back. "Just the gas." The kid shrugged. "Whatever, man." Marcus walked back to his truck, sat behind the wheel, and pressed his palms against his eyes until he saw stars. He couldn't even buy his daughter a $2 snack. The highway was dark and wet. Rain had started falling about 10 miles back, light at first, then heavier. Now it was coming down like the sky was trying to drown everything beneath it. His windshield wipers were old. They streaked more than they cleared. He leaned forward, squinting through the blur. His phone sat on the passenger seat. He thought about calling Zoe, just to hear her voice. But she'd hear something wrong in his voice, and she'd worry. She was 7 years old. She shouldn't have to worry about anything. That was his job. He almost missed the red SUV on the shoulder. Hazard lights blinking. Someone standing outside in the rain. A woman. "Keep driving," the voice in his head said. "You're late. You're broke. You got nothing left to give." His foot hit the brake anyway. Marcus pulled over behind the SUV and stepped out into the rain. Within seconds, he was soaked. The cold bit through his jacket, through his shirt, all the way to his bones. The woman looked up when she heard him coming. She was maybe 50, well-dressed, the kind of clothes you see in magazines. Her hair was plastered to her face, her makeup running, her expensive shoes sinking into the mud. She held a tire iron like she was afraid of it. "Ma'am, you all right?" She took a step back. He saw the fear flash across her face. A black man, dark highway, no one around. He'd seen that look before. He knew what she was thinking. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said, keeping his distance. "Just saw you were stuck."
Thought you might need help.
She didn't say anything.
Look, I understand. You don't know me. But my daughter's waiting for me at home. 7 years old. I just want to help you and get back to her.
Something in her expression shifted.
"I can manage,"
she said. Her voice was steady but strained.
"I'm sure you can. But that lug nut you're working on? It's cross-threaded. You keep turning it that way, you'll strip it completely."
She looked down at the tire, then back at him.
"How do you know?" "Used to be a mechanic, 15 years, before the shop closed."
She hesitated. Rain streamed down both their faces.
"Okay," she finally said. "Thank you."
Marcus knelt in the mud beside the flat tire. The cold water soaked through his jeans immediately. His knees ached. His back protested. But he ignored it all. He'd been ignoring his body's complaints for years. Couldn't afford to listen.
"I'm Victoria," the woman said.
"Marcus,
"Do you do this often? Stop for strangers?"
He worked the tire iron, feeling the cross-threaded bolt resist. "When I can."
"Why?"
"Someone did it for me once. Long time ago. When I was 19. My car broke down outside Atlanta. I had $40 to my name and no idea what I was doing. An old man stopped, fixed my radiator hose with duct tape, and didn't ask for a thing. That changed your life? Changed how I saw the world. Made me believe people could still be good. That belief kept me going through a lot of dark times. Victoria was quiet for a moment. Then, "You have a daughter?" Marcus's hands paused for just a second. "Yeah, Zoe. She's 7. Is she with her mother tonight?" He resumed working on the bolt. "Her mother's gone. Left when Zoe was 3. Hasn't seen her since." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Some people aren't meant to be parents. Better she left than stayed and made everyone miserable." "That must be hard, raising a child alone." The bolt finally gave. Marcus felt it turn and let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Hard is when you have choices. When you don't have choices, you just do what needs doing. Every morning I wake up, I see Zoe's face, and I know exactly why I'm here. Ain't nothing hard about that. Victoria watched him work. His hands were steady despite the cold. There was something about the way he moved, methodical, careful, like every action had purpose. "You said you were a mechanic?" "Was. Shop I worked at closed down 3 years ago. Owner got sick. Couldn't keep it running. I've been doing warehouse work since then, and cleaning offices at night." "2 jobs?" "3 sometimes, if I can get weekend shifts at the loading dock." "When do you sleep?" Marcus laughed softly. "Sleep's a luxury, ma'am, like vacations and health insurance. Stuff other people have." He removed the flat tire and rolled it aside. "You work too," she said. It wasn't a question. "Everyone works." "I mean, you work hard. Harder than most people I know." He looked up at her. Rain ran down his face. "I work as hard as I have to. Not a minute more. Because every minute I'm working is a minute I'm not with my daughter. So I work fast, I work smart, and I get home to her as quick as I can." "That's not what the world sees, though, is it?" Marcus pulled the spare tire from her trunk. "No, ma'am. The world sees a black man with a low income and a child who missed some school days. The world sees a failure." Victoria flinched at the word. "You're not a failure." "Tell that to Child Protective Services." He said it before he could stop himself. The words hung in the wet air between them. Victoria's expression changed. "CPS?" Marcus fitted the spare onto the bolts. "Forget I said that." "No, please. What happened?" He tightened the first bolt, then the second. His jaw was clenched. "Someone reported me. Said I was neglecting my daughter. There's a hearing tomorrow. Court's going to decide if I'm fit to keep her." "What are the allegations?" "Working too much. Not being home enough. She missed some school days when she was sick. My neighbor was supposed to call the school, but forgot. That kind of thing." "That's not neglect." Marcus looked up at her. His eyes were hard. "Ma'am, I appreciate you saying that, but you don't know me. You don't know my life. For all you know, I am neglecting her." "Are you?" "No." The word came out fierce. "I would die for that little girl. I work myself to the bone so she can have food and clothes and a roof over her head. I walk to work some days so she can have bus money for school. I eat 1 meal a day so she can eat 3. His voice cracked. "That's not neglect. That's love. But love doesn't fit in their boxes. Love doesn't show up on their forms." Victoria didn't say anything for a long moment. The rain was beginning to lighten, but neither of them moved. "What's the judge like?" Marcus asked. "The one handling my case." "What do you mean?" "You seem like someone who knows how things work. Do you know anything about Judge Victoria Hale?" Victoria's heart stopped.
Why do you ask? Just trying to know what I'm walking into. They say she's fair, but strict. Goes by the book. Doesn't let emotion get in the way of her rulings. Does that scare you? Marcus finished tightening the last bolt. He stood up slowly, his knees popping. Everything scares me. Losing my daughter is the only thing that terrifies me. He started gathering his tools. You know what Zoe said to me last week? She asked why some kids have two parents and she only has one. I didn't know what to say. So I told her maybe she's lucky because she has a daddy who loves her double. He paused, looking down at his muddy hands. She looked at me with those big brown eyes and said, I don't need double love, Daddy. I just need you to stay. His voice broke on the last word. She's 7 years old.
And she's already worried about her father leaving, because that's what happened with her mother. And now the court is going to tell her that maybe Daddy isn't good enough either. Victoria felt something crack inside her chest. In 20 years on the bench, she had heard thousands of stories. She had read thousands of files. She had made thousands of decisions. But standing here, in the rain, she realized something that shook her to her core. The files didn't tell the whole story. They never had. Marcus. He looked up. I think... She stopped. What could she say? I'm the judge. Your fate is in my hands. I came out here to clear my head after spending the morning deciding cases just like yours. I think you're going to be okay, she said instead. I think any judge who meets you will see what I see. What do you see? A man who stops in the rain to help a stranger. A man who puts his daughter before himself. A man who hasn't given up, even when the world keeps knocking him down. Marcus shook his head. That's not what they see in court. In court, they see a file, numbers, checkboxes. They don't see me. Maybe this judge will be different. Maybe. But I've learned not to count on maybe. He loaded his tools back into his truck. The rain had almost stopped now. Just a light drizzle, like the sky was exhaling. You're all set, he said. Spare should get you home, but get a real tire soon. Victoria reached for her purse. Let me pay you something. No, ma'am. Please, you spent 20 minutes in the rain. I didn't stop for money. His voice was gentle but firm. I stopped because it was the right thing to do. Because my father taught me that character is what you do when nobody's watching. He opened his truck door. Besides, I gotta get home. My daughter's waiting. Marcus. He turned. What's your full name, so I can remember you? Thompson. Marcus Thompson. Victoria nodded slowly. I won't forget that name. Just a name, nothing special. He climbed into his truck, raised a hand in farewell, and pulled back onto the highway. Victoria stood there, watching his taillights disappear into the darkness. The rain had stopped, but her hands were shaking. Marcus pulled into Mrs. Patterson's driveway at 9:15 p.m. Before he could knock, the door flew open and Zoe launched herself at him. Daddy! He caught her, lifting her up, holding her tight. She smelled like soap and the cheap strawberry shampoo they bought at the dollar store. Hey, baby girl. You're all wet. Got caught in the rain. Did you help somebody again? He pulled back to look at her. How'd you know? Because you always help people when it rains. That's what you do. His throat tightened. Yeah, baby. That's what I do. Mrs. Patterson stood in the doorway, watching them with sad eyes. She was 73 years old, had raised 6 children of her own, and had been looking after Zoe since Marcus couldn't afford daycare. She was good today, the old woman said. Did her homework, ate her dinner. Only asked about you 12 times. 12's not bad. Marcus. Mrs. Patterson lowered her voice. What's happening tomorrow? He set Zoe down and gave her a look that said, "We'll talk later. Go get your backpack, baby. We're heading home." Zoe ran inside. Mrs. Patterson stepped closer. "I got the letter too. They want me to testify." "Testify about what?" "About whether you're a good father. About how often you're home. About whether I think Zoe is in danger." "What are you going to tell them?" The old woman reached out and grabbed his hand. "I'm going to tell them the truth. That you're the best father I've ever seen. That you work yourself half to death for that child. That she lights up like the sun every time you walk through the door." Marcus blinked hard. "Will that be enough?" "I don't know, baby. But it's the truth. And the truth has to count for something." That night, Marcus lay on the floor beside Zoe's bed. He did this sometimes when he got home late. She'd already be asleep, but he'd just lie there in the dark, listening to her breathe.
Daddy?
He thought she was asleep. "Yeah, baby."
Are the court people going to take me away?
His heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. "No, baby. Nobody's taking you anywhere."
Promise?
He reached up and found her hand in the darkness. "I promise."
Forever and always?
Forever and always. She was quiet for a moment. Then,
Daddy,
"Yeah?"
if they try to take me, I'll run away and find you. No matter where they put me, I'll always find you."
Marcus pressed his face into the carpet so she wouldn't hear him crying. "I know you will, baby. I know you will." Across town, Judge Victoria Hale sat in her study, a glass of wine untouched beside her. The case file was open on her desk. Thompson, Marcus Jerome, case number 2024-CF-0847. Allegation: neglect. Failure to provide adequate supervision. She had read it before. This morning, in fact. Before she'd gotten in her car and driven out of the city, trying to clear her head. She had looked at the file and seen numbers. Income level: below poverty line. Work schedule: excessive. Missed school days: 4. Neighbor providing unsupervised care: red flag. She had looked at that file and seen a problem to be solved. A case to be decided. A box to be checked. Now she looked at it again and saw Marcus Thompson kneeling in the rain, fixing a stranger's tire, expecting nothing in return. She saw a father who would die for his daughter. A man the system had already decided was a failure. Victoria closed the file and pressed her fingers against her temples. Tomorrow morning, at 9 o'clock, that man would walk into her courtroom. He would stand before her bench. He would not know that she was the woman on the highway, and she would have to decide his fate. The law said she should recuse herself. She had a personal connection to the defendant. It was the ethical thing to do. But if she recused herself, who would hear his case? Judge Morrison, who hadn't ruled in favor of a low-income father in 15 years? Judge Chen, who treated CPS reports like scripture? Victoria picked up her phone, put it down, picked it up again. The right thing to do. What was the right thing to do? She thought about Marcus's voice in the rain. Character is what you do when nobody's watching. Nobody was watching now, just her, and the file, and a decision that would change everything. The rain had stopped hours ago, but the storm was just beginning. Victoria didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows shift as cars passed outside. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus Thompson kneeling in the rain. She heard his voice. She felt the weight of his words. "I would die for that little girl." At 4 a.m., she gave up on sleep. She went downstairs, made coffee, and sat at her kitchen table with the case file open in front of her. She read it again, every page, every note, every recommendation. The social worker, Diane Crawford, had written her assessment in cold, clinical language. Subject works excessive hours, leaving minor child in care of elderly neighbor without formal arrangement. Subject's residence shows signs of financial strain. Minor has missed multiple school days without adequate documentation. Recommendation: supervised custody pending further evaluation. Victoria had seen hundreds of reports like this. She had made decisions based on reports like this. She had told herself that the system worked, that the process was fair, that justice was blind. But justice wasn't blind. Justice saw what it wanted to see. Justice saw a poor black man with a messy apartment and an inconsistent schedule. Justice didn't see a father who walked to work to save bus money for his daughter. Justice didn't see a man who stopped in the rain to help a stranger. Victoria closed the file and pressed her hands against her face. What was she supposed to do? The ethical answer was clear. Recuse herself. Explain to the court administrator that she had a personal connection to the defendant. Let another judge handle the case. But she knew what would happen if she did that. Judge Morrison was next in rotation. Morrison hadn't ruled in favor of a struggling parent in years. He believed that poverty was a character flaw, that single fathers were inherently suspect, that the system existed to protect children from their own families. If Morrison got this case, Zoe Thompson would be in foster care by the end of the week. Victoria stood up and walked to the window. The sky was beginning to lighten. A new day was coming, whether she was ready for it or not. She had spent her entire career believing in the system, following the rules, trusting the process. For the first time in 20 years, she wasn't sure the process deserved her trust. Marcus woke up at 5:30 a.m. He hadn't really slept either, just drifted in and out, his mind racing, his heart pounding every time he thought about what was coming. He showered in cold water because the hot water heater had broken 2 weeks ago, and he couldn't afford to fix it. He put on his only suit, a charcoal gray thing he'd bought at Goodwill for his father's funeral. It was a little too big in the shoulders now. He'd lost weight since then. Stress had a way of eating you from the inside. Zoe was still asleep when he finished getting dressed. He stood in her doorway, watching her. She had kicked off her blankets in the night. Her stuffed rabbit was on the floor. He picked it up and tucked it beside her. "Daddy?" She was awake, looking at him with those big brown eyes. "Hey, baby, I didn't mean to wake you." "Why are you wearing your fancy clothes?" He sat on the edge of her bed. "I have to go see some people today. Important people." "The court people?" His chest tightened. "Yeah, the court people." Zoe sat up. Her hair was wild, sticking up in every direction. She looked so small, so fragile. "Are you scared, Daddy?" He wanted to lie. He wanted to tell her everything was fine, that there was nothing to worry about, that the world was fair and good and kind. But he had promised himself he would never lie to her. "Yeah, baby, I'm a little scared." "Why?" "Because I love you so much. And sometimes when you love someone that much, you get scared of losing them." Zoe reached out and put her small hand on his cheek. "You won't lose me, Daddy. I won't let them take me." Marcus felt his eyes burn. "I know, baby. I know." "And if they try, I'll tell them. I'll tell them you're the best daddy in the whole world. I'll tell them about how you make me pancakes on Sunday, and how you read me stories even when you're really tired, and how you always check under my bed for monsters, even though you know there aren't any." A tear escaped down his cheek. He wiped it away quickly. "You'd do that for me?" "Of course, Daddy. We're a team, forever and always." He pulled her into a hug, holding her tight, breathing in the smell of her hair. Forever and always, baby girl. Mrs. Patterson arrived at 7:30 to take care of Zoe. She looked at Marcus with worried eyes, but didn't say anything in front of the child. "You be good for Mrs. Patterson, okay?" Marcus said, kneeling down to Zoe's level.
Okay, Daddy.
"I'll be back as soon as I can."
Promise? Promise. He kissed her forehead and walked to the door. When he looked back, she was waving at him, a brave smile on her face. It nearly broke him. The courthouse was a massive stone building downtown. Marcus had driven past it 100 times, but never been inside. Now, walking up those steps, he felt like he was entering a different world. A world of suits and briefcases, and people who had power over people like him. He found the courtroom on the 3rd floor, room 307, family court. The hallway outside was crowded with people, lawyers talking in hushed voices, parents pacing nervously, children sitting on benches, confused and scared. Marcus found a seat and waited. His hands were shaking. He pressed them against his knees to make them stop. "Mr. Thompson?" He looked up. A woman in a gray suit was standing in front of him. He recognized her immediately. Diane Crawford, the social worker. "Yes?" "I wanted to speak with you before we go in." About what? She sat down beside him. Her expression was professional, distant, like she was reading from a script. "I want you to understand that today's hearing is about determining what's best for your daughter. It's not personal." "Not personal?" Marcus stared at her. "You're trying to take my child away from me. How is that not personal?" "I'm trying to ensure that Zoe is in a safe, stable environment." "She is in a safe, stable environment. She's with me." "Mr. Thompson, the evidence suggests—" "The evidence?" He cut her off. "What evidence? That I work too hard? That I don't make enough money? That her school didn't get a phone call when she was sick?" "These are indicators of what? Of being poor? Of being a single father? Of doing my best in a world that doesn't give a damn about people like me?" Mrs. Crawford's expression didn't change. "The court will review all the facts." "The facts?" Marcus laughed bitterly. "Lady, you don't know the first thing about my facts. You came into my home for 20 minutes, looked around like you were inspecting a crime scene, and decided my daughter was in danger. You didn't ask about her grades. You didn't ask about her friends. You didn't ask if she was happy. Mr. Thompson, is she? Is my daughter happy? Do you even care?" Mrs. Crawford stood up. "The hearing begins in 10 minutes. I suggest you compose yourself." She walked away. Marcus sat there, his heart pounding, his fists clenched. Compose himself. Like this was a job interview. Like his entire life wasn't on the line. At exactly 9 a.m., the bailiff opened the courtroom doors. Marcus walked in. The room was smaller than he expected. Wood-paneled walls, fluorescent lights, an American flag hanging limply in the corner, rows of benches like church pews, and at the front, behind a raised desk, sat the judge. Marcus froze. His breath caught in his throat. It was her. Victoria, the woman from the highway, the woman whose tire he had changed in the rain. She was sitting there, in a black robe, looking directly at him. For a split second, their eyes met. He saw recognition flash across her face. Then it was gone, replaced by a mask of professional neutrality. "Please be seated," the bailiff announced. Marcus walked to the defendant's table on shaking legs. His mind was spinning. What was happening? Was this a coincidence? Did she know? He sat down and stared at the table in front of him, afraid to look up again. Victoria's heart was hammering against her ribs. She had known this moment would come. She had prepared for it. But seeing him walk through those doors,
seeing the shock on his face when he recognized her. It hit her like a physical blow. She took a deep breath and forced herself to focus. "This court is now in session," she said, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "Case number 2024-CF-0847 in the matter of Zoe Thompson, a minor child. The petitioner is the Department of Child Protective Services. The respondent is Marcus Jerome Thompson, father of the minor child." She looked at the CPS table. Mrs. Crawford sat beside a young attorney in an expensive suit. "Is the petitioner ready to proceed?" "Yes, Your Honor," the attorney said. Victoria turned to Marcus. He was alone at his table, no lawyer beside him. "Mr. Thompson, I see you are not represented by counsel. Do you understand your right to an attorney?" Marcus stood up slowly. "Yes, Your Honor." "And you have chosen to represent yourself?" "I couldn't afford a lawyer, Your Honor." Victoria felt something twist in her chest. She kept her face neutral. "Very well. Mr. Thompson, you have the right to request a continuance to seek legal representation. Do you wish to do so?" Marcus looked at her, really looked at her. "No, Your Honor. I want to get this over with. I want to go home to my daughter." Victoria nodded. "Let the record show that the respondent has waived his right to counsel and declined a continuance. Petitioner, you may proceed." The CPS attorney stood up. His name was Bradley something. Young, confident, the kind of lawyer who had never known a hard day in his life. "Your Honor, the Department of Child Protective Services is requesting that the minor child, Zoe Thompson, be placed in temporary foster care pending a full custody evaluation. We believe the evidence will show that Mr. Thompson, while perhaps well-intentioned, has failed to provide adequate supervision and care for his daughter." He opened a folder and began reading. "On September 14th, October 3rd, October 21st, and November 8th of this year, the minor child was absent from school. On each occasion, Mr. Thompson failed to provide proper documentation or notification to the school." Marcus wanted to interrupt. He wanted to explain. But he knew how this worked. He had to wait his turn. "Furthermore," the attorney continued, "the minor child has been in the care of a neighbor, Mrs. Evelyn Patterson, age 73, for extended periods without any formal arrangement. Mrs. Patterson is not a licensed child care provider. There is no background check on file. There is no emergency medical authorization." The words felt like punches, each one landing harder than the last. "Finally, Your Honor, a home visit conducted by Mrs. Diane Crawford revealed concerning conditions. The refrigerator contained minimal food. The residents showed signs of financial distress. Mr. Thompson works approximately 16 hours per day, leaving his daughter effectively unsupervised for significant portions of time." The attorney closed his folder with a decisive snap. "Your Honor, the department believes that Mr. Thompson loves his daughter. But love is not enough. Children need stability, structure, consistent care. Based on the evidence, we do not believe Mr. Thompson can provide these things. We request temporary placement while a full evaluation is conducted." He sat down. Victoria turned to Marcus. "Mr. Thompson, you may respond." Marcus stood up. His legs felt unsteady. His voice felt trapped in his throat. Everyone was looking at him. The judge, the lawyers, the social worker, the court reporter. All of them waiting for him to speak. He thought about Zoe, her smile, her laugh, the way she said, "forever and always." And suddenly, the fear didn't matter anymore. "Your Honor, everything that man just said is technically true. Zoe did miss those school days. Mrs. Patterson does watch her when I'm at work. My refrigerator is usually pretty empty." He paused. But here's what he didn't say. On September 14th, Zoe had a fever of 102. I couldn't miss work because I'd already missed 2 days that month, and my boss told me one more absence and I was fired. So Mrs. Patterson watched her. She's a retired nurse. She took better care of Zoe than any doctor would have. Victoria was watching him intently. On October 3rd, Zoe had a stomach bug. Same situation. On October 21st, it was her birthday. I took her to the zoo. It was the only day off I'd had in 6 weeks, and I wanted to spend it with my daughter. On November 8th, she had a dentist appointment. I forgot to call the school. That's on me, I admit it. He took a breath. As for Mrs. Patterson, she's not licensed, that's true. But she raised 6 children of her own. All of them turned out good. She's been watching Zoe since she was 4 years old. She loves my daughter like a grandmother. Zoe calls her Grandma Evie. His voice cracked. And yes, my refrigerator is empty a lot, because I make sure Zoe eats first. I make sure she has what she needs. If that means I skip meals, I skip meals. That's not neglect. That's being a father. The courtroom was silent. Your Honor, I know I'm not perfect. I know my life looks messy on paper, but that paper doesn't show everything. It doesn't show that Zoe gets straight A's in school. It doesn't show that she has friends, that she's happy, that she tells me every night she's the luckiest girl in the world because she has me. He looked directly at Victoria. It doesn't show that I would do anything for her. Anything. I would work 100 hours a week. I would walk through fire. I would give up everything I have just to see her smile. Tears were streaming down his face now. He didn't try to hide them. Please, Your Honor, don't take my daughter away from me. She's all I have. She's everything. He sat down. Victoria stared at the papers in front of her, but she wasn't seeing them. She was seeing Marcus on the highway, kneeling in the mud, helping a stranger. She was hearing his voice. Character is what you do when nobody's watching. She was feeling the weight of everything she had believed about the system, about justice, about right and wrong. Your Honor, the CPS attorney was standing again. We'd like to call our first witness, Mrs. Diane Crawford. Victoria nodded. Proceed. Mrs. Crawford took the stand. She was sworn in, and the attorney began his questions. Mrs. Crawford, please describe your home visit to the Thompson residence. I arrived at approximately 10 a.m. on November 15th. Mr. Thompson was at work. The child was present with Mrs. Evelyn Patterson. What did you observe? The apartment was small, 2 bedrooms. The furniture was worn. There were dishes in the sink. The refrigerator contained very little food, some milk, eggs, a few vegetables. Did you speak with the child? Briefly. She seemed healthy, alert. She was doing homework when I arrived. Did she say anything concerning? Mrs. Crawford hesitated. She asked me if I was going to take her away from her daddy. The words hung in the air. What did you tell her? I told her I was just there to make sure she was okay. And in your professional opinion, is she okay? Mrs. Crawford looked at Marcus. Something flickered in her eyes. In my professional opinion, there are concerns that warrant further evaluation. Thank you. No further questions. Victoria turned to Marcus. Mr. Thompson, you may cross-examine the witness. Marcus stood up slowly. He had never cross-examined anyone in his life. He had no idea what he was doing. But he knew what he needed to say. Mrs. Crawford, when you came to my apartment, did my daughter seem scared? No. Did she seem unhappy? No. Did she seem unhealthy, malnourished, abused? No. Did she seem loved? Mrs. Crawford paused. Yes. Did she tell you she wanted to leave? No. Did she tell you she wanted to stay with me? Another pause, longer this time. Yes, she said she never wanted to leave her daddy. Marcus nodded slowly. No more questions, Your Honor. The CPS attorney called 2 more witnesses. A school administrator who confirmed the absences. A case supervisor who talked about protocols and procedures and best practices. Marcus listened to all of it. He responded when he could. He didn't have fancy legal arguments. He just had the truth. By noon, the testimony was finished. Victoria looked at both sides. We will take a 1-hour recess. I will deliver my ruling at 1 p.m. She stood up and disappeared through the door behind her bench. Marcus sat alone at his table, his head in his hands. 1 hour. In 1 hour, he would know if he still had a daughter. Victoria locked herself in her chambers. She sat at her desk, staring at the wall, her mind racing. Everything in her training told her to recuse herself. She had a personal connection to this case. She had met the defendant. She had formed opinions based on that meeting. But if she recused herself now, the case would go to Morrison, and Morrison would rule against Marcus. She was certain of it. She picked up her phone, put it down, picked it up again. There was another option, a risky one, an unorthodox one. She could rule on the case herself. She could base her ruling on the evidence presented in court, which, despite CPS's efforts, clearly showed a loving father doing his best in difficult circumstances. But if anyone found out about her connection to Marcus, her ruling could be overturned. Her career could be destroyed. She thought about Marcus's words. Character is what you do when nobody's watching. Nobody was watching now, just her, and her conscience, and a little girl who needed her father. Victoria made her decision. At 1 p.m., the courtroom reconvened. Marcus sat at his table, barely breathing. His hands were clasped so tight his knuckles had turned white. Victoria entered and took her seat. All rise, the bailiff announced. Everyone stood, then sat. Victoria looked at the courtroom. At the CPS, attorneys with their expensive suits and thick folders. At Mrs. Crawford with her clipboard. At Marcus Thompson, alone and terrified. I have reviewed the evidence presented in this case, she began. I have listened to the testimony. I have considered the recommendations of Child Protective Services. Marcus's heart stopped. The allegations against Mr. Thompson center on missed school days, informal childcare arrangements, and financial hardship. These are concerns that warrant attention. They are not, however, evidence of neglect. Marcus looked up. Neglect implies willful disregard for a child's well-being. What I see in this case is the opposite. I see a father who works 2 jobs to provide for his daughter. I see a man who relies on his community, in this case, a trusted neighbor, to help him raise his child. I see a parent who prioritizes his daughter's needs above his own. Victoria's voice was steady, but inside, her heart was pounding. The evidence shows that Zoe Thompson is healthy, happy, well-adjusted, and deeply loved. She excels in school. She has friends. She has expressed, clearly and repeatedly, her desire to remain with her father. She turned to Marcus. Mr. Thompson, this court does not exist to punish parents for being poor. It does not exist to separate children from loving homes. It exists to protect children from genuine harm. I see no evidence of harm here. Only evidence of a father who refuses to give up. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. Therefore, it is the ruling of this court that the petition for temporary custody is denied. Zoe Thompson will remain in the care of her father. A sob escaped Marcus's throat. However, Victoria continued. I am ordering that Mr. Thompson participate in the county's family support program. This program will provide resources to help stabilize his situation, including assistance with childcare, job training, and financial counseling.
This is not a punishment. It is an opportunity. She looked at Marcus one more time. Mr. Thompson, take care of your daughter. She's lucky to have you.
Marcus couldn't speak. He just nodded, tears falling freely.
This case is dismissed. Court is adjourned.
The courtroom erupted in murmurs. The CPS attorney looked stunned. Mrs. Crawford was writing something in her folder. Marcus just sat there, unable to move. It was over. He still had his daughter. He walked out of the courthouse into the afternoon sun. The sky was clear. The air was crisp. For the first time in weeks, he could breathe. He pulled out his phone and called Mrs. Patterson.
Marcus, what happened?
We won. We won.
Oh, thank God. Thank God.
Can I talk to her? Can I talk to Zoe? There was a shuffling sound, then a small voice.
Daddy?
Hey, baby girl.
Did the court people let you keep me?
Yeah, baby. They let me keep you. Silence. Then,
I told you, Daddy. I told you they would see.
Marcus laughed through his tears. Yeah, baby, you told me. Are you coming home now? I'm coming home right now.
Good, because I made you a picture. It's me and you and the sun. Because you're my sunshine, Daddy.
Marcus pressed the phone against his ear, his whole body shaking. I'll be there soon, baby. Forever and always.
Forever and always.
He hung up and stood on the courthouse steps, looking up at the sky. Somewhere inside that building, a judge had given him his life back. He didn't know why, he didn't know how, but he would never forget her face. Victoria didn't leave her chambers for an hour after the ruling. She sat at her desk, her robe still on, her hands trembling slightly. The case file was closed in front of her, but she couldn't stop staring at it. At the name printed on the tab, Thompson, Marcus Jerome. She had done the right thing. She was certain of it. The evidence supported her ruling. Any objective judge would have reached the same conclusion. But she hadn't been objective. She had known Marcus Thompson before he walked into her courtroom. She had formed an opinion about his character before hearing a single word of testimony, and she had hidden that fact from everyone. Her phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. CPS, attorney requesting meeting, says ruling was irregular. Victoria typed back. Tell him to file an appeal if he has concerns. She set the phone down and closed her eyes. 20 years on the bench. 20 years of following the rules, respecting the process, believing in the system. And in one morning, she had compromised everything she stood for. For a man she barely knew. For a little girl she had never met. She told herself it was justice, real justice, not the kind that came from checking boxes and following procedures. The kind that came from seeing people as they truly were. But doubt gnawed at her. Had she made the right call? Or had she let emotion cloud her judgment? She thought about Marcus kneeling in the rain, his steady hands, his quiet dignity, his voice when he talked about his daughter. She's all I have. She's everything. No, she had made the right call. She just wished she could be certain. Marcus drove home in a daze. The streets looked different somehow. Brighter, more alive. Like the world had shifted on its axis and everything was new. He kept replaying the judge's words in his head. This court does not exist to punish parents for being poor. Take care of your daughter. She's lucky to have you. He had walked into that courtroom expecting to lose everything. Instead, he had walked out with something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. When he pulled into Mrs. Patterson's driveway, Zoe was already running out the front door. She launched herself at him before he could even get out of the truck. "Daddy! Daddy! You came back!" He caught her, lifting her up, spinning her around. Her laughter filled the air like music. "Of course I came back, baby girl. I told you I would." "Mrs. Patterson said the court people might keep you for a long time. I was scared." He held her tighter. "I was scared too, but it's over now. We're okay." "Promise?" "Promise." Mrs. Patterson stood on the porch, wiping her eyes with the corner of her apron. "Get in here, both of you. I made lunch." They sat around Mrs. Patterson's small kitchen table, eating sandwiches and chips. Zoe talked non-stop about her morning, the picture she drew, the game she played, the funny thing the neighbor's cat did. Marcus listened to every word. He had spent so many months worrying about the future that he had forgotten to appreciate the present. His daughter's voice, her smile, the way she gestured wildly when she told a story. This was what mattered. This was everything. "Daddy, you're not eating." He looked down at his untouched sandwich. "Sorry, baby, just thinking." "About what?" "About how lucky I am." Zoe tilted her head. "Because of the court?" "Because of you." She grinned. "I'm lucky too, because I have the best daddy." Mrs. Patterson reached over and squeezed Marcus's hand. "What happens now?" the old woman asked quietly. "Judge said I have to do some program, family support thing. They're supposed to help with childcare, job training, stuff like that." "That sounds good." "Yeah," Marcus nodded slowly. "It does." For the first time in years, something sounded good. That night, after Zoe was asleep, Marcus sat on the front steps of his apartment building. The air was cool. The street was quiet. A few stars peeked through the city haze. He thought about the judge, Victoria. She had recognized him. He was sure of it. That moment when their eyes met, the flash of something across her face, she knew exactly who he was. But she hadn't said anything. She hadn't recused herself or mentioned their encounter. She had just listened to the evidence and made her ruling. Why? He didn't understand. If their positions had been reversed, if he had been the judge and she had been the defendant, would he have done the same thing? He wanted to believe he would. He wanted to believe that justice was about truth, not technicalities. That doing the right thing mattered more than following the rules. But he also knew the world didn't work that way. Not usually. Not for people like him. So why had she helped him? The question circled in his mind, unanswered and persistent. The next morning, Marcus called the number on the card the court clerk had given him. Family Support Services. A woman answered on the third ring. "Family Support, this is Linda. How can I help you?" "My name is Marcus Thompson. The court ordered me to participate in your program." "One moment, Mr. Thompson." He heard typing. "Yes, I have your file here. Judge Hale's referral. We've been expecting your call." "What do I need to do?" "First, we'll schedule an intake appointment. One of our counselors will meet with you to assess your needs and create a support plan. We offer job training, financial counseling, child care assistance, and other resources." "Is there a cost?" "No, Mr. Thompson. The program is fully funded. No cost to you." Marcus closed his eyes. No cost. Those words felt like a miracle. "When can I come in?" "How's tomorrow at 10 a.m.? "I'll be there." The Family Support Services office was in a squat brick building on the edge of downtown. Marcus arrived 15 minutes early, wearing his Goodwill suit again. It was the only nice thing he owned. The waiting room was small but clean. A few other people sat in plastic chairs. A young mother with a toddler on her lap, an elderly man filling out paperwork, a teenage boy staring at his phone. "Mr. Thompson?" A woman emerged from a back office. She was maybe 40, with kind eyes and graying hair pulled back in a ponytail. "I'm Sandra. I'll be your case manager. Come on back." He followed her to a small office. She gestured to a chair and sat down behind her desk. "So, Marcus. Can I call you Marcus?" "Yes, ma'am." "Sandra, not ma'am," she smiled. "I've read your file. Tell me what's going on, in your own words." So he told her. Everything. The double shifts, the single parenting, the CPS investigation, the court hearing, the ruling. Sandra listened without interrupting. When he finished, she nodded slowly. "You've been through a lot." "Yes, Sandra." "And you've been doing it alone." "Yes." "That's going to change." She opened a folder on her desk. "Here's what we can do for you. First, we're going to get you enrolled in our job training program. You said you were a mechanic before?" 15 years. "Good. There's a certified automotive program at the community college. 6 weeks, fully covered. When you finish, you'll have credentials that can get you into any shop in the city." Marcus felt his heart lift. "I've been trying to get back into that work, but nobody wants to hire without current certification." "They will after this." "Second, we're going to set you up with subsidized childcare. There's a licensed facility 3 blocks from your apartment. Zoe can go there before and after school. You won't have to worry about Mrs. Patterson doing it all alone." "Mrs. Patterson doesn't mind." "I'm sure she doesn't, but she's 73, and you need a sustainable solution." Sandra's voice was gentle but firm. "Third, we're going to connect you with a financial counselor. They'll help you create a budget, deal with any debts, maybe even build some savings." Marcus stared at her. "Why are you doing all this?" "Excuse me?" "Why? I walked in here expecting paperwork and hoops to jump through. Instead, you're offering me everything." Sandra leaned back in her chair. "Marcus, do you know why I do this job?" "No." "Because 20 years ago, I was sitting where you're sitting. Single mother, 2 kids, working 3 jobs and still couldn't make rent. I thought the world was against me. I thought nobody cared." She paused. "Then someone helped me. A stranger. She didn't have to. She just saw that I was struggling and decided to do something about it. Changed my whole life." Marcus thought about the highway, the rain, Victoria's flat tire. "So now I pay it forward," Sandra continued. "Every person who walks through that door, I see myself. I see someone who just needs a chance. That's all this is, Marcus. A chance." He didn't trust himself to speak. He just nodded. "Now," Sandra said, sliding some papers across the desk, "let's get you signed up." 3 weeks later, Marcus started the automotive certification program. It felt strange, being in a classroom again. He was the oldest student by at least 15 years. The others were kids, barely out of high school, talking about video games and girlfriends and things that seemed impossibly distant to him. But when they got into the shop, everything changed. The instructor, a grizzled man named Earl, who had been turning wrenches since before Marcus was born, watched him work for about 10 minutes before walking over. "You've done this before." 15 years. "Why are you here?" "Shop closed. Needed the certification to get back in." Earl nodded slowly. "You're good. Real good. Best hands I've seen in this program in years." "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just keep doing what you're doing. You'll have a job before you finish this course. Guarantee it." Earl was right. 4 weeks into the program, Marcus got a call from a shop owner named Ray Jackson. Ray had heard about him from Earl. "I need a good mechanic, someone who knows what they're doing and doesn't cut corners. Earl says that's you."
Yes, sir. Can you start next Monday? Marcus's hands were shaking. Yes, sir. I can start Monday. Good. Pays $15 an hour to start, plus overtime. Benefits after 90 days. Sound good? 15 an hour. Benefits. Overtime. Sounds real good, Mr. Jackson. Ray. Call me Ray. See you Monday. Marcus hung up and stood in the middle of his apartment, staring at the phone in his hand. Then he sat down on the floor and cried. "Daddy, why are you crying?" Zoe had come out of her room, her stuffed rabbit clutched against her chest. Marcus wiped his eyes and held out his arms. She climbed into his lap. "I'm not sad, baby. I'm happy." "Happy crying?" "Yeah, happy crying." "Why?" "Because I got a new job, a good job, and things are going to be different now." Zoe looked up at him with those big brown eyes. "Different how?" "I'm going to be home more. We're going to have more time together. No more Daddy working all night and sleeping all day." Her face lit up. "Really? Really? So we can have pancake Sundays again, like before?" Marcus laughed. "Yeah, baby. Pancake Sundays. Every week." She threw her arms around his neck. "This is the best day ever, Daddy." He held her tight. "Yeah, baby. It really is." The weeks that followed felt like a dream. Marcus started at Ray's shop on Monday. The work was familiar, comfortable, like putting on a glove that fit perfectly. His hands remembered everything: the feel of the tools, the rhythm of the repairs, the satisfaction of fixing something broken. Ray was a good boss, fair, straight-talking. He didn't care about credentials or background. He cared about whether you could do the job. Marcus could do the job. By the end of his first week, he had already built a reputation. Customers started asking for him by name. Ray noticed. "You keep this up, I'm going to have to give you a raise before your probation's even over." "Just doing my job, Ray." "No, you're doing more than your job. You're doing it right." Marcus didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to praise. He wasn't used to anything going well. "Thank you," he managed. "This job means everything to me." "I can tell. That's why you're good at it." At home, things were changing too. Zoe started going to the childcare center after school. At first, Marcus worried. She had been with Mrs. Patterson for so long. What if she didn't adjust? What if she was scared or lonely? But the first day he picked her up, she came running out with a huge smile on her face. "Daddy, I made a friend. Her name is Keisha, and she has braids like me, and she knows all the words to the Frozen songs." Marcus laughed. "Sounds like a good friend." "She's the best friend. Can she come over sometime? Please?" "We'll see." "That means yes." "That means we'll see." But of course it meant yes. How could he say no to that face? Mrs. Patterson still watched Zoe sometimes, on weekends or when Marcus had to work late. But it wasn't a burden anymore. It was a choice. "You're looking better," the old woman told him one afternoon. "What do you mean?" "I mean you're not walking around like a ghost anymore. You're smiling, laughing. You look like yourself again." Marcus thought about it. "I feel like myself again. For the first time in years." Mrs. Patterson patted his cheek. "That little girl needs her daddy healthy and happy. You remember that." "Yes, ma'am." One evening, about 6 weeks after the court hearing, Marcus was cleaning up after dinner when his phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Mr. Thompson? This is Sandra from Family Support Services." "Hi, Sandra. Everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing."
Marcus leaned against the kitchen counter. I'm doing good. Really good. The job's going great. Zoe loves her new daycare. We're doing okay. I'm so glad to hear that. Sandra paused. There's actually another reason I'm calling. What's that? Judge Hale's office reached out to me. She wanted to know how you were progressing in the program. Marcus's heart skipped. The judge? Yes. She said she wanted to follow up on your case, make sure the referral was working out. That's unusual, isn't it? Very unusual, Sandra admitted. In 20 years, I've never had a judge personally follow up on a case like this. She must have been impressed by something. Marcus didn't say anything. Anyway, I told her you were doing wonderfully, that you had completed the job training, found employment, and were exceeding all expectations in the program. Thank you, Sandra. Don't thank me. You did the work. I just pointed you in the right direction. After they hung up, Marcus stood in his kitchen, staring at the wall. The judge was checking on him. Victoria. The woman from the highway. Why? It didn't make sense. Judges didn't follow up on cases. They made their rulings and moved on. That was how the system worked. But Victoria wasn't following the system. She hadn't followed it when she ruled in his favor, despite knowing him personally. She wasn't following it now. He thought about going to the courthouse, finding her chambers, thanking her properly for everything she had done. But what would he say? What could he say? I know you recognized me. I know you helped me anyway. I don't know why, but I'm grateful. It didn't seem like enough. Nothing seemed like enough. The next Sunday, Marcus made pancakes. It had been their tradition back before everything fell apart. Sunday morning pancakes with chocolate chips and too much syrup. Zoe would help mix the batter, getting flour everywhere, and they would eat at the little table by the window and talk about nothing and everything. Then the second job had started, and the third. Sundays became workdays. Pancakes became cereal eaten alone while Daddy slept. But not anymore.
Daddy, you're putting in too many chocolate chips.
There's no such thing as too many chocolate chips.
Yes, there is. Miss Jennifer at daycare said too much sugar is bad for you.
Miss Jennifer isn't making these pancakes. I am. Zoe giggled.
Okay, but if my teeth fall out, I'm blaming you.
Deal. They ate at the little table by the window. The morning sun streamed in, warm and golden. Zoe had syrup on her chin and batter in her hair, and Marcus thought he had never seen anything more beautiful in his life.
Daddy?
Yeah, baby?
Are we going to be okay now? Forever?
He reached across the table and took her small hand in his. I can't promise forever, baby. Nobody can promise that. But I can promise that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure we're okay. Every single day, no matter what.
That's good enough for me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
She squeezed his hand.
Because you always keep your promises. That's what makes you the best daddy.
Marcus felt his eyes burn. I love you, Zoe.
I love you too, Daddy. Forever and always.
Forever and always. That afternoon, while Zoe was napping, Marcus sat down at the kitchen table with a pen and paper. He stared at the blank page for a long time. Then he began to write. Dear Judge Hale, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Marcus Thompson. You ruled on my custody case about 6 weeks ago. You also, I believe, got a flat tire on Highway 12 the night before that hearing. I've thought about writing this letter a dozen times and thrown it away each time. I don't know what to say. I don't know if I should say anything. But I feel like I have to. You saved my daughter. You saved me. I don't know why you did it. I don't know why you didn't recuse yourself when you recognized me. But I know that if you had, I would have lost everything. I'm writing to tell you that your faith in me was not misplaced. I've completed the job training program. I'm working as a mechanic now, at a good shop with a good boss. My daughter is thriving. We're happy. I used to think the system was against people like me. I used to think that nobody in power cared about the little guy, the struggling single father, the man just trying to keep his head above water. You proved me wrong. I don't know if I'll ever see you again. I don't know if I should even send this letter. But I want you to know that what you did mattered. It mattered more than you'll ever know. Thank you for believing in me when nobody else did, for giving me a chance when the world had written me off. If there's ever anything I can do for you, anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask. I owe you everything. With gratitude, Marcus Thompson. He read the letter 3 times. Then he folded it, put it in an envelope, and wrote the courthouse address on the front. He didn't know if he would send it, but he knew he had to write it. The envelope sat on his dresser for a week. Every morning he looked at it. Every morning he decided not to send it. What if it got her in trouble? What if someone found out about their connection? What if his gratitude became evidence in some ethics investigation? But every night he picked it up again, read the address, thought about the woman who had knelt in the rain and changed his life. On the 7th day, he made his decision. He walked to the post office, stood in line for 20 minutes, and handed the envelope to the clerk. "Just regular mail," he said. "You got it." The clerk tossed it in a bin with 1,000 other letters. Marcus watched it disappear. Whatever happened next was out of his hands. Victoria found the letter on a Tuesday afternoon. It was buried in a stack of courthouse mail, between a bar association newsletter and a notice about parking regulations. Plain white envelope. No return address. Her name written in careful, deliberate handwriting. She almost threw it away. She got dozens of letters every week. Most were complaints. Some were threats. A few were thank you notes from attorneys whose cases she had ruled in favor of. But something about this envelope made her pause. She opened it, and the world stopped. Dear Judge Hale, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Marcus Thompson. Victoria read the letter 3 times. Then she read it again. Her hands were shaking by the time she finished. He knew. He had known all along. The night on the highway, the courtroom, the ruling. He had connected all of it. And instead of exposing her, instead of filing a complaint or going to the press, he had written her a thank you letter. She set the letter down on her desk and pressed her palms against her eyes. 20 years on the bench. She had sent people to prison. She had separated families. She had made decisions that changed lives forever. And in all that time, she had never received a letter like this. You saved my daughter. You saved me. Had she? Or had she just done what any decent person would do? She thought about that night on the highway, the rain, the cold, the stranger who had stopped when he didn't have to, who had helped when he had every reason to keep driving. Marcus Thompson had taught her something that night, something she had forgotten somewhere along the way. Kindness wasn't about rules. It wasn't about procedures. It was about seeing another person's humanity and choosing to honor it. She picked up the letter again and read the last lines. If there's ever anything I can do for you, anything at all, please don't hesitate to ask. I owe you everything. Victoria smiled despite herself. He owed her nothing. She was the one in his debt. That evening, Victoria drove home a different way than usual. She didn't plan it. Her hands just turned the wheel, and suddenly she was on Highway 12, passing the spot where her car had broken down 2 months ago. She pulled over and got out. The road was empty, quiet. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. She stood there for a long time, remembering. The rain, the fear, the frustration. And then the headlights, the stranger, the steady hands and the quiet voice. I didn't stop for money. I stopped because it was the right thing to do. Victoria had spent her entire career trying to do the right thing, following the rules, upholding the law, believing that justice came from procedure, from precedent, from the careful application of legal principles. But Marcus Thompson had shown her a different kind of justice, the kind that came from the heart, the kind that didn't ask for anything in return. She got back in her car and drove home. The letter sat in her briefcase, folded carefully, waiting. 3 days later, Victoria made a decision. She was going to write back. It was risky, foolish probably. If anyone found out about their correspondence, there would be questions, investigations. Her ruling could be overturned. Her career could be destroyed. But some things mattered more than career. She sat at her desk at home, pen in hand, and began to write. Dear Marcus, of course I remember you. I remember everything about that night. I remember standing in the rain, feeling helpless and afraid. I remember seeing your headlights and not knowing if I should be relieved or terrified. I remember the way you knelt in the mud without complaint, the way you talked about your daughter, the way you refused to take any payment for your kindness. I remember walking into my courtroom the next morning and seeing your face. I remember the shock, the realization, the weight of what I was about to do. You're right that I should have recused myself. Every legal principle I know told me to step aside. But I couldn't. Because I knew that if I did, another judge would hear your case. And that judge wouldn't have seen what I saw on that highway. He would have seen a file, numbers, checkboxes. He would have seen a poor black man with an unstable work history and a messy apartment. He would have taken your daughter away. I couldn't let that happen, not after what you showed me. You showed me that character isn't about circumstances. It's about choices. You had every reason to keep driving that night. You were late. You were tired. You had your own troubles. But you stopped anyway. You helped anyway. You gave kindness to a stranger when you had nothing to give. That's not something you can put in a file. That's not something a social worker can measure with a checklist. But it's the truest measure of a person I know. I'm glad to hear you're doing well. I'm glad the program is working. I'm glad Zoe has her father. But please don't thank me. You're the one who saved something that night on the highway. You reminded me why I became a judge in the first place. Not to follow rules, but to serve justice, real justice, the kind that sees people as they truly are. I don't know if we'll ever meet again. Part of me hopes we won't, for your sake as much as mine. If anyone discovered our connection, it could cause problems for both of us. But I want you to know that I think about that night often. I think about you and Zoe. I hope you're happy. I hope life gives you all the second chances you deserve. You're a good man, Marcus Thompson. The world needs more people like you. With respect and gratitude, Victoria. She read the letter twice. Then she folded it, sealed it in an envelope, and wrote his address on the front. She had looked it up in the court records. Technically, a violation. One more rule broken. She didn't care. Marcus found the letter in his mailbox on a Friday afternoon. He didn't recognize the handwriting at first. The envelope was plain, unremarkable. But when he opened it and saw the signature at the bottom, his heart nearly stopped. Victoria. He read the letter standing in the parking lot of his apartment building. Then he read it again, leaning against his truck. You showed me that character isn't about circumstances. It's about choices. His eyes burned. All his life he had felt invisible. A faceless cog in a machine that didn't care about him. A number in a system designed to grind people down. But Victoria had seen him. Really seen him. You're a good man, Marcus Thompson. The world needs more people like you. He folded the letter carefully and put it in his pocket, close to his heart. Daddy, why do you keep touching your pocket? Zoe was watching him across the dinner table, her head tilted with curiosity. No reason, baby. You've done it like 50 times. Have I? Yeah. Is there something in there? Marcus smiled. Just a letter. From who? He thought about how to answer. From a friend. What kind of friend? The kind you don't meet very often. The kind who helps you when you least expect it. Zoe nodded seriously, as if this made perfect sense. Like when you helped that lady on the road, in the rain? Marcus's breath caught. You remember that? You told me about it. You said you changed her tire and she was really nice. I did say that. Is she the friend who wrote you the letter? Sometimes his daughter was too smart for her own good. Yeah, baby, she is. That's cool. Zoe took a bite of her chicken nugget. Maybe we can meet her someday. Maybe. But even as he said it, Marcus knew it wasn't possible. Victoria had been clear about that. If anyone discovered our connection, it could cause problems. Some friendships had to exist only in letters, only in memory. It was enough. It had to be enough. The weeks passed. Spring turned to summer. Marcus settled into his new life like a man waking from a long nightmare. He worked at Ray's shop during the day, earning a reputation as the best mechanic in the area. Customers requested him specifically. Ray gave him a raise after 2 months, then another one after 4. He picked Zoe up from daycare every afternoon. They went to the park. They got ice cream. They watched movies on the couch with a big bowl of popcorn between them. On Sundays, they made pancakes. It wasn't a perfect life. There were still hard days, bills that came due at the wrong time, Zoe getting sick and needing to stay home. The loneliness that crept in late at night when the apartment was quiet and Marcus had too much time to think. But it was a good life, better than he had ever imagined. And he never forgot who had made it possible. One evening in July, Marcus was closing up the shop when a car pulled into the lot. It was a red SUV, the same model Victoria had been driving that night on the highway. His heart stopped. But when the driver got out, it wasn't Victoria. It was a young woman, maybe 30, with worried eyes and a phone pressed to her ear. I don't know what's wrong with it, she was saying. It just started making this noise and then it died. I'm stuck at some auto shop. Yeah, I'll wait. She hung up and looked at Marcus. I'm sorry, are you closed? My car just broke down right here. Worst timing ever. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag. Let me take a look. Really? You don't have to. My husband is coming to get me. No trouble. Might be something simple. He popped the hood and examined the engine. It took him about 30 seconds to spot the problem. Your serpentine belt snapped. That's why it died. Is that bad? It's not good, but it's fixable. I can have it done in about an hour if you want to wait. The woman's eyes widened. Tonight? But you're closed. Doesn't matter. You're stuck. I can help. She stared at him like he had grown a second head. "Why would you do that? You don't even know me." Marcus smiled. "Someone did it for me once. Changed my whole life. Figure I should pass it on." The woman blinked rapidly. For a moment, she looked like she might cry. "Thank you. Thank you so much." "No trouble at all." He fixed her car. She tried to pay him extra for staying late. He refused. "Just doing my job, ma'am." "No, you're not. You're doing way more than your job. What's your name?" "Marcus. Marcus Thompson." She pulled out her phone. "I'm going to tell everyone I know about this place. You just got a customer for life." "I appreciate that." She drove away, waving through the window. Marcus stood in the empty lot, watching her taillights disappear. It felt good. Helping someone. Passing on the kindness that had been passed to him. Maybe that was how it worked. Maybe that was the point. One person helps another. That person helps someone else. And on and on. An endless chain of small kindnesses holding the world together. He told Zoe about it at dinner. "Daddy, you're like a superhero." "Superheroes have capes. I just have wrenches." "Wrenchman!" She struck a pose. "Defender of broken cars!" Marcus laughed. "I'll take it." "Daddy, can I ask you something?" "Always." "Why do you help people so much? Even when you're tired? Even when you don't have to?" Marcus set down his fork. He thought about the question seriously, the way Zoe deserved. You know how sometimes you feel sad, and then someone does something nice for you, and suddenly the sadness doesn't feel so heavy? Yeah. That's why. Because helping someone else makes the world a little lighter. For them and for you. Zoe nodded slowly. So it's like magic. Kind of, yeah. Except it's real. Real magic is the best kind. You're absolutely right, baby girl. That night, after Zoe was asleep, Marcus took out Victoria's letter again. He had read it so many times the paper was wearing thin at the creases. But he read it once more, sitting at his kitchen table in the quiet darkness. You reminded me why I became a judge in the first place. Not to follow rules, but to serve justice. Real justice. He thought about writing her again, telling her about the woman with the broken car, telling her that her words had changed him, that he was trying to live up to them. But he didn't want to put her at risk. Every letter was evidence. Every communication was a thread that could unravel everything. So instead, he just sat there, holding her words, feeling grateful. In August, something unexpected happened. Marcus got a call from Sandra at Family Support Services. "Marcus, I have some news. Are you sitting down?" "Should I be?" "Maybe." She paused. "We're doing a profile series for our newsletter. Success stories from the program. People who turned their lives around. And we'd like to feature you." Marcus was silent. "Marcus, you there?" "Yeah, I'm here. Why me?" "Because your story is incredible. You came into this program at rock bottom. CPS investigation, custody hearing, working 2 jobs and barely surviving. And now look at you. Steady employment, stable housing. Your daughter is thriving. You're exactly the kind of success we want to highlight." "I don't know, Sandra. I'm not big on attention." "You don't have to decide now. Just think about it. It could help other people, you know. Other fathers going through what you went through, showing them it's possible to come out the other side." Marcus thought about that. "Can I let you know next week?" "Of course. Take your time." He talked to Zoe about it. "Someone wants to write a story about us?" "About me, mostly. About how things got better after the court stuff." "Will I be in it?" "Probably." Zoe's eyes lit up.
I could be famous.
It's a newsletter, baby, not exactly the New York Times.
Still counts.
She thought for a moment.
Daddy, I think you should do it.
Yeah? Why?
Because maybe some other kid is scared right now, like I was scared. And maybe if they read about us, they won't be so scared anymore.
Marcus stared at his daughter, 7 years old, and already wiser than most adults he knew.
When did you get so smart? I've always been smart, Daddy. You just don't pay attention.
He laughed and pulled her into a hug. Okay, I'll do it.
Yay! Can I pick what picture they use?
We'll see.
That means yes.
That means we'll see. The interview happened the following week. A writer named Janet came to Marcus's apartment with a notebook and a camera. She was friendly, professional, asking questions that made him dig deep. What was the lowest moment for you? The night before the hearing, lying on the floor next to my daughter's bed, listening to her breathe, knowing someone might take her away from me. What kept you going? Her. Only her. Everything I did was for her. What would you say to other fathers in your situation? Marcus thought carefully. I'd say don't give up. I know it feels impossible. I know the system seems rigged against you. But there are good people out there. People who want to help. You just have to keep fighting until you find them. Janet wrote it all down. One more question. If you could thank anyone for where you are now, who would it be? Marcus felt Victoria's letter in his pocket. He always carried it now. A stranger, he said. Someone who helped me when they didn't have to. Someone who saw me as a person, not a problem. Can you tell me their name? He shook his head. No. Some kindnesses are meant to stay private. Janet smiled. That's a beautiful answer. The newsletter came out in September. Marcus's face was on the cover. Big headline. Against all odds, one father's journey from courtroom to hope. He bought 5 copies, sent one to Mrs. Patterson, framed one for Zoe's room, kept one for himself. And late at night, when no one was watching, he addressed an envelope to the courthouse and slipped a copy inside. No note, no return address, just the newsletter. He hoped Victoria would understand. She did. Victoria found the newsletter in her mail 2 days later. She saw Marcus's face on the cover and felt her heart swell. She read the article 3 times, tears streaming down her face. I'd say don't give up. There are good people out there. People who want to help. He had done it. He had really done it. She cut out the article and put it in her desk drawer, next to his first letter. Evidence of something beautiful. Something true. Something the law could never fully capture. That night, Victoria drove past the auto shop where Marcus worked. She didn't stop. She just slowed down, looking through the window. She could see him inside, working on a car, his hands steady, his face focused. He looked happy, healthy, whole. She smiled and kept driving. Some stories don't need an ending. Some connections exist beyond time and space, beyond logic and law. This was one of them. 2 strangers who had met on a rainy highway, who had changed each other's lives, who would probably never speak again. And yet, somehow, that was enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. Marcus looked up from the engine he was working on. For just a moment, he thought he saw a familiar car passing by the window. A flash of red, a glimpse of a woman behind the wheel. But when he looked again, it was gone. He smiled to himself and went back to work. Somewhere out there, Victoria Hale was thinking about him. and he was thinking about her. Two strangers, connected by a rainy night and a flat tire. Two lives, changed forever by a simple act of kindness. The story wasn't over. Stories like this never really end. They just keep rippling outward, touching more lives, spreading more light. One kindness at a time, one person at a time, forever and always. 2 years passed. 2 years of pancake Sundays and bedtime stories. 2 years of steady paychecks and peaceful nights. 2 years of watching Zoe grow from a scared little girl into a confident, joyful child who laughed easily and loved fiercely. Marcus sometimes caught himself pausing in the middle of ordinary moments, washing dishes, folding laundry, walking Zoe to school, just to appreciate how far they had come. He never forgot where they started. He never forgot who had helped them get here. On a crisp October morning, Zoe ran into the kitchen waving a piece of paper. "Daddy, Daddy, look!" Marcus set down his coffee mug.
What have you got there, baby girl?
"It's a letter from school. They picked me." He took the paper and read it. His heart swelled. "Dear Mr. Thompson, we are pleased to inform you that your daughter, Zoe Thompson, has been selected as Student of the Month for October. Zoe demonstrates exceptional kindness, leadership, and academic excellence. We would like to invite you to attend a recognition ceremony on October 15th at 2 p.m. in the school auditorium." "Student of the Month!" Zoe bounced on her heels. "Ms. Rodriguez said I won because I helped Keisha when she was sad, and I always share my snacks, and I got an A on my reading test." Marcus pulled her into a hug. "I'm so proud of you, baby." "Will you come to the ceremony?" "I wouldn't miss it for anything in the world." He called Ray that afternoon. "I need October 15th off. Zoe's getting an award at school." "Student of the Month? How'd you know?" Ray laughed. "Because you've been bragging about that kid since the day you started here. Of course she's Student of the Month. Take the whole day. Hell, take 2 days." "One's enough. Thanks, Ray." "Don't thank me. Just bring pictures." The morning of the ceremony, Marcus put on his good suit, a new one now, bought with his own money from a real store, not Goodwill. Zoe wore a yellow dress that Mrs. Patterson had helped her pick out. She stood in front of the mirror, turning back and forth, watching the skirt swish. "Do I look fancy, Daddy?" "You look beautiful, baby." "Fancy beautiful or regular beautiful?" "The fanciest beautiful there ever was." She grinned at her reflection. "I wish Mommy could see me." The words hit Marcus like a fist to the chest. Zoe rarely mentioned her mother anymore. He thought she had stopped thinking about her. He knelt down to her level. "Baby, can I tell you something?" "Yeah?" "Your mommy made a choice to leave. That was her choice, not yours. And it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Some people just aren't ready to be parents. Some people have holes inside them that they don't know how to fill." Zoe's eyes were serious. "Are you ever going to leave?" "Never. Not ever. Not for anything." "Promise?" "I promise on every star in the sky, on every pancake we ever made, on everything I am and everything I'll ever be." She threw her arms around his neck. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl. Forever and always." "Forever and always." The school auditorium was packed with parents. Marcus found a seat near the middle, next to Mrs. Patterson, who had insisted on coming. "Wouldn't miss my grandbaby's big moment," the old woman said, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "That child is going places." "She gets it from you." "She gets it from you, Marcus. Don't you forget that." The ceremony began. The principal welcomed everyone, talked about the importance of character and achievement, introduced the teachers, and then, "Our student of the month for October is..." Zoe Thompson. Zoe walked onto the stage, her yellow dress bright under the lights, her smile even brighter. She accepted her certificate and stepped up to the microphone. Hi, I'm Zoe. I wanted to say thank you for this award, and I wanted to say thank you to my daddy. Marcus felt his throat tighten. My daddy works really hard. He used to work so much I barely saw him. But now he's home every night, and we make pancakes on Sundays, and he reads me stories even when he's tired. She paused, looking out at the audience, until she found his face. Ms. Rodriguez asked me why I help people. I said, because my daddy taught me. He says that when you help someone, you make the world a little lighter. For them and for you. He says real magic is when you're kind to someone for no reason, except it's the right thing to do. Marcus couldn't breathe. So this award isn't really for me. It's for my daddy, because everything good about me, I learned from him. She held up the certificate. I love you, Daddy. The auditorium erupted in applause. Marcus was crying. Mrs. Patterson was crying. Half the parents around them were crying. He didn't care who saw. His daughter had just stood on a stage and told the world that he mattered. That was worth more than any award. After the ceremony, they went out for ice cream. Zoe got chocolate with sprinkles. Marcus got vanilla. Mrs. Patterson got butter pecan and complained it wasn't as good as the stuff she used to make herself. Daddy, can I ask you something? Always. That lady from the highway, the one who wrote you the letters. Do you still think about her? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Yeah, baby, I do.
Do you think we'll ever meet her?
I don't know. Maybe someday.
I hope so. I want to thank her.
For what? Zoe licked her ice cream thoughtfully.
For seeing you. For knowing you were good when other people didn't.
Marcus reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You know what, Zoe? You're the smartest person I've ever met.
I know, Daddy. You tell me every day.
He laughed. And I'll keep telling you until you're sick of hearing it.
I'll never be sick of it.
That night, Marcus sat on the front steps of his apartment building, looking up at the stars. He thought about how far he had come. The double shifts, the empty refrigerator, the CPS investigation, the courtroom, and now, a steady job, a happy daughter, a life that finally felt like his own. He pulled out his wallet and removed a worn piece of paper. Victoria's letter, folded and refolded so many times, the creases were starting to tear. You're a good man, Marcus Thompson. The world needs more people like you. He had carried those words for 2 years. On hard days, he read them to remind himself that someone believed in him. On good days, he read them to remind himself why he kept going. He wondered where Victoria was now, if she was happy, if she ever thought about him. He hoped she did. 3 weeks later, Marcus was working under the hood of a Chevy when Ray walked into the shop. Marcus, someone here to see you. Who? Didn't say, but she asked for you by name. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag and walked to the front of the shop. A woman was standing by the counter. She was older, with gray streaked through her hair and tired lines around her eyes. But her posture was straight, her gaze steady. It took him a moment to recognize her, and then his heart stopped. Victoria. She looked different out of her judge's robes, smaller somehow, more human. But her eyes were the same, intelligent, searching, kind. Marcus. Judge Hale.
Victoria, please.
They stood there, neither sure what to say. How did you find me? Marcus finally asked.
The newsletter. Your shop was mentioned in the article.
You came all this way just to...
I retired.
The words hung in the air. Retired? Victoria nodded.
Last month. 22 years on the bench. I decided it was time.
Why?
She smiled faintly. Because I spent 20 years following rules that didn't always serve justice, and I realized I was tired of it. I wanted to do something different with whatever time I have left.
Marcus didn't know what to say.
I read the newsletter article, Victoria continued. I read what you said about not giving up, about there being good people out there who want to help. She paused. I wanted you to know that you were right, and I wanted to thank you.
Thank me? For what?
For reminding me what justice really means, for showing me that character matters more than circumstances,
For being the kind of person who stops in the rain to help a stranger. Her eyes were glistening. I've thought about that night 1,000 times. I've thought about what would have happened if you hadn't stopped. If I'd had to walk for miles in the rain, or wait for hours for a tow truck. It seems like such a small thing, changing a tire. But it changed everything for me. Marcus shook his head slowly. You're the one who changed everything. You saved my daughter. You gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve one. You did deserve it. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Every choice you made that night proved you deserved it. The system couldn't see that. The files couldn't show that. But I saw it, and I couldn't let it go unrecognized. They stood in silence, two strangers who had become something more. What are you going to do now? Marcus asked. Now that you're retired. Victoria smiled. I'm starting a nonprofit. Legal advocacy for single parents facing custody disputes. Pro bono representation for people who can't afford lawyers. I want to help people like you. People who are doing their best, but keep getting knocked down by a system that doesn't understand them. Marcus felt his chest expand. That's incredible. I'm hoping to make a difference, even if it's small. It's not small, trust me. When you're the one being helped, it's the biggest thing in the world. Victoria reached into her purse and pulled out a card. This is my contact information. If you ever know anyone who needs help, a parent fighting for their kids, someone who can't afford a lawyer, send them my way. Marcus took the card. His hands were trembling. I will. I promise. Victoria turned to leave, then stopped. Marcus, there's something else I wanted to ask you. Anything. That night on the highway, when you stopped to help me, did you have any idea what was coming the next day? Any sense that your whole life was about to change? Marcus thought back to that night. The rain, the cold, the woman standing helpless beside her car. No, he said. I didn't know anything except that someone needed help, and I could give it. That's what I thought, Victoria smiled, and for a moment she looked younger, lighter, like a weight had been lifted. That's exactly what I thought. She extended her hand. Marcus shook it. Take care of yourself, Marcus Thompson. You too, Victoria Hale. She walked out of the shop and into the afternoon sun. Marcus watched her go, the card still clutched in his hand. That evening, he told Zoe everything. They sat on the couch together, the TV off, the apartment quiet except for their voices. So she came to see you? The lady from the letters? Yeah, baby, she did. What did she look like? Older, kind, like someone who's been through a lot, but still believes in good things. Zoe was quiet for a moment. Daddy, why do you think she helped us? Really? Marcus considered the question. I think sometimes people come into your life exactly when you need them. Not because of luck or coincidence, but because that's how the world works. Kindness attracts kindness. When you put good out into the world, it comes back to you. Like a boomerang? Exactly like a boomerang. Zoe snuggled closer to him.
I'm glad you stopped to help her, Daddy.
Me too, baby. Me too. A year later, Marcus stood in front of a crowd at the community center. Victoria's nonprofit had grown faster than anyone expected. They had helped dozens of families, won countless cases, changed hundreds of lives. And tonight, they were honoring their first success story. Marcus Thompson. I never thought I'd be standing here, he said into the microphone. A year ago, I was just a guy trying to survive, working too hard, sleeping too little, wondering every day if I was going to lose the only thing that mattered to me. He looked out at the audience. Zoe was in the front row, now 9 years old, wearing her favorite purple dress. Mrs. Patterson sat beside her, beaming. Ray was there, and Sandra, and a dozen other people who had helped him along the way. And in the back, standing quietly, was Victoria. Someone told me once that character is what you do when nobody's watching. I didn't fully understand that until I lived it. Until I stopped on a rainy highway to help a stranger, and that stranger turned out to be the person who would save my family. He paused. I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that we're all connected in ways we can't always see. And I believe that every act of kindness, no matter how small, ripples out into the world and touches lives we'll never know about. He held up a certificate, the recognition award they were giving him. This isn't for me. This is for every person who ever helped me when they didn't have to. For Mrs. Patterson, who watched my daughter like her own grandbaby. For Ray, who gave me a job when I had nothing. For Sandra, who showed me that the system can actually work. And for Victoria Hale, who saw me as a person when everyone else saw a problem. His voice cracked. Zoe, baby, stand up. Zoe stood, her face glowing with pride. This is why I'm here. This is why I fight. This is why I stop on rainy highways and help strangers. Because she's watching. And I want to be the kind of man she can be proud of. Zoe blew him a kiss. The audience erupted in applause. Afterward, Victoria found him by the refreshment table. That was a beautiful speech. I meant every word. I know you did. That's what made it beautiful. They stood side by side, watching the crowd mingle and laugh. You know, Victoria said, when I started this nonprofit, I wasn't sure it would work. I wasn't sure anyone would listen to a retired judge trying to change a broken system. And now? Now I know it's possible. Because of you. Because of your story. Marcus shook his head. It's not my story. It's our story. Yours, mine, Zoe's, everyone who believed in us. We did this together. Victoria smiled. I suppose we did. The party wound down. People said their goodbyes and drifted toward the door. Marcus found Zoe waiting for him by the exit, her hand in Mrs. Patterson's. Ready to go home, baby? Ready. He turned back one last time and saw Victoria watching them from across the room. He raised his hand in a small wave. She waved back. No words were needed. They had said everything that mattered long ago, on a rainy highway and in letters folded with care. Some connections go beyond words, beyond time, beyond logic. This was one of them. Marcus drove home through quiet streets. Zoe fell asleep in the back seat, her head resting against the window, her breath fogging the glass. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror and felt his heart overflow. She was healthy. She was happy. She was safe. Everything he had fought for, everything he had sacrificed, it had all been worth it. He thought about his father, who had worked himself to death for his family. He thought about his mother, who had stood at that grave and wondered if it was all for nothing. It wasn't for nothing. Every sacrifice had meaning. Every struggle had purpose. Every act of love, no matter how small, left a mark on the world. Marcus understood that now. When they got home, he carried Zoe to her bed. She stirred as he tucked the blanket around her.
Daddy?
Yeah, baby?
Tonight was the best night ever.
Yeah?
Because everyone saw what I already knew.
What's that?
That you're the best daddy in the whole world.
He kissed her forehead. Good night, Zoe.
Good night, Daddy.
Forever and always? Forever and always. She closed her eyes and drifted back to sleep. Marcus stood there for a long moment, watching her breathe, feeling the weight of everything they had been through. And then he walked to the window and looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, other fathers were fighting the same battles he had fought. Other families were struggling against systems that didn't understand them. Other strangers were passing each other on rainy highways, deciding whether to stop or keep driving. He hoped they would stop. He hoped they would choose kindness over convenience, compassion over comfort. Because that was how the world changed. One choice at a time. One person at a time. One small act of grace that rippled outward forever. Marcus Thompson had learned that lesson on the hardest night of his life, and he would spend the rest of his days passing it on. The rain would come again. It always did. But Marcus wasn't afraid anymore. He had been through the storm. He had come out the other side, and he had discovered something that no file could capture, no system could measure, no judge could decree. Love was stronger than circumstance. Kindness was more powerful than law. And a father's promise, whispered in the dark to a sleeping child, could hold together an entire universe, forever and always.